I'm Andrew Millham, a Forest School leader and Essex Wildlife Trust ambassador. Today we're doing a live stream for Marine in the Moment. It's a series of live streams about nature in Essex. So today we're talking about saltmarsh, and I'm here with Rachel Langley, who heads up all the marine stuff at Essex Wildlife Trust.
Thank you very much, and happy National Marine Week, everybody. So I'm just going to give us a bit of an intro to salt marshes, and we're going to have a bit of a chat, aren't we?
Cool. Yeah, the first question we've got is, what actually is salt marsh?
Yeah. So salt marsh is a distinctive feature of estuaries, and actually a really distinctive feature of Essex and the Essex coastline. And it's daily inundated by the tide, and it's made up of a whole suite of salt-tolerant plants. So some of these can include salicornia, or you might know it's samphire, you might have eaten some samphire. And then in some sections you can also get some really pretty flowers, so from the sea lavender and the sea pink as well. So it's actually, although it may look barren in some areas, it's actually a really diverse, really important habitat.
Oh, nice. And why is it important? Is that why it's so important? Because of the biodiversity?
Exactly.
Nice.
So that's one point. So in terms of biodiversity, it kind of hosts a whole swathe of things. So it can be the critters in the mud and in the creeks. It's really important for a variety of bird species, and it's actually really crucial for loads of juvenile fish.
Oh,
so
nice.
we've actually done some surveys on this site, in this creek included, where we found hundreds and hundreds of juvenile European bass. So it's really important as that fish nursery area as well.
Oh, nice. We should say as well, we're in Abbotsford Farm on the saltmarsh. So the next question is, what are the threats to saltmarsh at the moment and in general?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in England, over recent centuries, we've actually lost about 85% of our salt marshes, and in the UK we're losing them at about a rate of 100 hectares per year. And what this means is we're losing, as well as those biodiversity benefits, we're also losing some of the benefits to us as a society and to people. So salt marshes can help with flood risk and flood alleviation, and they're also really key carbon stores. So protecting and restoring them is really important. So some of the main threats include water quality. There can be eutrophication, where you've got too many nutrients in the system. Also development, and with rising sea levels, if salt marshes aren't able to migrate landwards, then they can get squeezed out, and the habitat just has that loss as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can understand why it would prevent flooding. If the houses are back there, you've got this buffer area. Nice.
Exactly.
So leading on from the threats, what are some of the things that are being done and that maybe even we could do as individuals to help protect and restore saltmarsh?
Yeah, a really good question as well. So one of the key things, and why it's great to be at Abbots Hall in the Blackwater Estuary today, is one of the key things that we can do to help restore saltmarsh is do managed realignment projects. So this is basically when you have seawalls or sea defences which are purposefully punched through so the saltmarsh can then migrate into that area. So at Abbots Hall, this site, we actually, just over 20 years ago now, did 5 seawall breaches, and this is one of them, the largest. And the whole area created around 50 hectares of that intertidal, that mud and salt marsh habitat. We've also got our Fingering Hoe Wick Nature Reserve, and that created about 22 hectares of that same intertidal habitat.
Wow.
So it's a really amazing way that we can work on this really large scale to get those impacts. There's also kind of smaller scale experimental options that we can look at existing marshes and erosion in channels and things like that. So kind of a two-pronged approach there. But managed realignments are really what we want to see more of, and what's going to help with that coastal resilience.
I've heard about something like that on Wallasey Island, where they push through the defences to let the sea rush in again.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Nice. Oh, good stuff. So we've kind of covered what the Trust is doing to help restore and protect saltmarsh there. I'd say, unless you've got anything else to add, the last question is, do you have a favourite species that exists in the saltmarsh?
That is a really good question. So I do love the salicornia. So that's some of the brighter green that you can see in the distance. So that's a pioneer species. That's that samphire species. And that comes in as a pioneer species and establishes itself on the mud flats. So for me, it's a real kind of iconic species,
It's
because
a
that's the
science,
beginning of the
yeah.
creation.
Nice.
So I think that's really exciting.
Oh,
but in
great.
terms of other species, and I've already mentioned it, kind of thinking about the wider biodiversity, for me the European bass is a really exciting fish species, and really kind of synonymous with salt marshes and managed realignments along the Essex coast and others. But there's a whole whole suite. So I've been greedy and chosen two. But
oh, nice. Amazing.
lots.
Well, that is fascinating. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank
and
you.
yeah, enjoy the rest of Marine Week.